Welcome back to Figuring It Out. I'm Rachel Lee, and today we're going to talk about the part of my life that has been the center of everything for a couple of decades now, motherhood. And not just any motherhood, motherhood solo. I've raised 2 boys on my own, no husband, no boyfriend, no real partner to lean on. And while that made me strong, it also made me tired. So, very tired. Because when you're raising kids alone, you're not just mom, you're mom and dad. You're the breadwinner, the nurse, the chauffeur, the disciplinarian, the cheerleader, the problem solver. You're everything, and you're everything all the time. And sometimes the hardest part of that wasn't the exhaustion, it was the loneliness. The quiet moments at the end of the day that I wished I had someone to share it all with. Someone to high five when the kids did something wrong, and someone to tag in when I just didn't have anything left to give. But here's the truth. I figured it out, imperfect, messy, and sometimes just by surviving the day. But I did it. And I want to talk today about what being a solo mom taught me, what I'm still figuring out, and maybe give some encouragement if you're out there doing the same thing. I never thought I'd be a single mom, not ever. But that's the life handed to me, and I've had to figure it out. The truth is, neither of my boys' fathers have been around. And honestly, I don't know what's worse. To know who your dad is, have some sort of relationship, maybe not a perfect one, and then have him just disappear, or to have a dad who simply wasn't there from the very beginning. That's my boy's reality. My oldest son had a dad who was in his life for a while, and then one day he wasn't. My youngest, his dad was just never there. And I'll tell you, in that gap, that absence, it shapes you as a mother. There's a 9.5-year difference between my boys. One is 23 now, the other is 13, soon to be 14, and both of them have grown up with me being everything. Part of that was fear. I was terrified of who I might let into our lives. I was scared of letting in a man who could do more harm than good. There's a movie that I watched a long time ago, and there was a scene in it that I'll never forget. It is a woman who is speaking to her best friend about how one of her boyfriends had hurt her children. And she asked her best friend, how did he know? How did he know that he could come into our lives and do this to us? And that has always haunted me. So I put up walls, and I've made sure that any men I allowed near me were men who never wanted more than I was willing to give. Because as much as I wanted love, I wanted safety for my boys more. But here's something I've come to realize. Looking back, one of the reasons I kept men at a distance wasn't just about protecting my boys. It was also about not trusting myself. If I'm being completely honest here, I didn't trust my own judgment when it came to choosing a partner, and the proof was right in front of me. The men who fathered my sons were not the kind of men I would bring back into our lives. So yes, I told myself I was keeping men out to keep my boys safe, and that was true. But underneath that was a nagging question: how did I even get here? How did I make those choices? Could I ever really even trust myself to choose differently? That's the kind of truth you wrestle with in solo motherhood. You're not just raising kids, you're also looking in the mirror, evaluating yourself, and figuring out what you still need to heal. And while that protected them, it also meant I did myself a disservice. And I did them a disservice too, because I became everything. The provider, the protector, the comforter, the disciplinarian, the cheerleader. I carried it all the time. And there were nights I cried myself to sleep from exhaustion, and mornings I woke up with pride because no matter how imperfectly, I was still doing it. Motherhood solo has also taught me so many lessons. Some that have broken me down, and some that have built me back up. The first lesson is strength. You discover strength you didn't even know you had, and you don't even know where it came from. But you've had to learn it because there's no one else to lean on. Every bill, every parent-teacher meeting, every doctor's visit, every car repair, it all came down to me. And even when I thought I couldn't do it, I did. The second lesson is resilience. But resilience doesn't mean perfection. There were days I nailed it and felt like Superwoman. And there were days that surviving until bedtime was the biggest victory of the day. And I had to learn that showing up, even imperfectly, is still motherhood. The third lesson is love. Love multiplies, even when energy doesn't. My boys have never doubted they were loved, even on the days when I was drained, stressed, or short-tempered. Because love isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. And the fourth lesson is loneliness. Motherhood solo is lonely. It's the silence after a big win, when your kid does something incredible and there's no partner to turn to and say, "Did you see that?" It's the exhaustion of carrying it all without anyone to tag in. It's celebrating and grieving in the same breath alone. But even in that loneliness, I also found pride because I'm doing it. I'm figuring it out. One thing I'm still trying to figure out is who I am beyond being a mom. For so long, that has been my sole identity. The provider, the protector, the everything. And now, with one son grown and the other on his way there, I'm asking, who am I without the constant weight of being all things to them? I'm also trying to figure out how to take care of myself without guilt, because when you're a solo mom, you get used to putting yourself last, always. And breaking that pattern is actually harder than I thought it would be. And here's something else I'll be honest about. While I'm sad that my boys have missed out on having a father figure in their lives, there's another side to that coin. I didn't have to share holidays or birthdays. I didn't have to deal with the awkward moments of someone showing up half-heartedly just to show up for the sake of it. These are my sons, mine. And while they may have missed out on something, they also had the blessing of peace. And since we're talking about fatherhood, let me say this. I don't like it when people tell me Happy Father's Day. I get why they do it, but that is not my preference. I am their mom. I am not their dad. We all just got handed the chips we were dealt, and we've rocked with it and made the best of the situation. But there are things that I will never be able to teach my boys, and I know that. I try, but it's not the same. Now, my oldest, every year, he still tells me Happy Father's Day, even after I've expressed to him why I feel the way I do. But in his eyes, given his father's situation and the knife that cut him so deep, there's no other way for him to see it. That's his way of honoring me, even if I hear it differently. So I'm still trying to figure out how to hold both truths. Sadness for what my boys didn't have, gratitude for the peace we did have, and the acceptance that I can only ever be their mother, and that has been more than enough. If you're raising kids solo, I want you to know this. You're not failing. You're not less than. You are doing one of the hardest jobs in the world, and you're still here. That's strength, and that's love. And if you've ever questioned yourself, the choices you've made, the partners you've picked, the way you've had to figure it all out, you're not alone in that either. I've been there. I've looked at my life and asked, how did I even get here? But here's what I've come to believe. You don't have to trust the version of you that made those choices years ago. You can trust the version of you that's still standing today. The one who shows up for her kids. The one who figures it out day by day. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. If you've been doing motherhood solo, I see you. I know that kind of strength, exhaustion, and quiet pride that comes from knowing you've done it all on your own. But I also want to be very clear. Motherhood solo doesn't mean motherhood alone. I may not have had a partner, that one person beside me to raise my boys with, but I did have and do have a tribe. Friends who showed up, some family who stepped in, and people who reminded me that love can look a lot of different ways. My boys had examples of what healthy, intact marriages look like. In fact, my oldest once told one of my best friends that he hopes to have a marriage one day like theirs. That moment showed me he's been watching, learning, and pulling the best pieces from the people around him. So while this isn't what I pictured when I dreamed of being a mom, I can say with full honesty and pride, I've got two amazing boys. Not perfect, but beautiful humans who are figuring out life just like I am. And all things considered, I've done a pretty damn good job. So ask yourself this week, what parts of you have you set aside while showing up for everyone else? And what would it look like to start showing up for her again, even just a little bit? Motherhood solo, in its own kind of way, is a love story. One written in long nights, early mornings, and resilience that most people will never fully understand. But you're still doing it. You're still figuring it out. And you're doing better than you think. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to follow Figuring It Out on Spotify or wherever you're listening. Share it with someone who might need a little reminder that they're not doing this alone either. Next week, we're going to get into something we all talk about but don't always practice: self-care. Not the social media version of candles and bubble baths, but the real kind. The kind that keeps you going when no one else is watching. I'll share what self-care looked like for me back when I didn't even know it was a thing, and how it's evolved into something deeper than rest. Until next time, this is Rachel Lee. I'll see you next week as we keep figuring it out together.